do today is show what I've found out from cracking open a TurboPad. So just your normal camera's really close to what I've got more about it, but if you think of your typical TurboGrafx TurboPad, and if you unscrew it, it's pretty easy, just get a Phillips screwdriver, take out the 5 screws out the back. What you end up with, let's get this to autofocus again, is you can see the back of this PCB. You can even see in the corner NEC PWD 624. It's the model number of the TurboPad. And it's got a few things on the back. It's got this S-term connector that goes to the cable, goes to the strain relief at the end. Got a couple of discrete components here and there, and then you have these 2 Toshiba dips. And you should be able to read it there. It's the 74HC157 and the 74HC163. The 157 is a MUX, and that is used for basically to get out. You'll notice there's not enough wires in the connector for every single digital switch to just go out in parallel. So they use the multiplexer chip to basically latch in more signals than they want to run copper for. So that's the 157. The 163 is a counter chip, and they use that counter chip to implement the turbo functionality. Hey Weapon, how's it going? So what I did was, so you can see in the upper right of the layout, I found on the internet a schematic of the TurboPad. I'm going to sort of use that to guide my exploration of it. So you see on the camera I've got a bunch of little micro grabbers hooked up. Here I'll get a little pointer. So this one over here, this micro grabber is hooked up to the clock signal, and that's not your typical clock. It's actually the convert pulse that comes from the TurboGrafx 16 onto the PCB. And what it does is it both controls the multiplexer doing its job. It's also the source clock pulse for the counter, which is this dip over here. So these 2 micro grabbers that are really close to each other on these 2 adjacent pins are hooked up to the 2 counter bits that the TurboGrafx uses for the fast and slow turbo rates. And this pin right here, this micro grabber, is hooked up to the clock input, so you can see that. What's this? Oh, I'm sorry, I messed it up. This pin's hooked up to the clock input. This pin over here is hooked up to what the 2 button, which if you notice in the corner I've got Bloody Wolf loaded up. It's paused, so that we can monitor what's actually going on when I press the 2 button. And then finally over here, this is just ground, this micro grabber. So with all that said, there's 2 things I want to show. One is to show, which if you look at the upper left of the screen, you'll see I've got a mixed signal oscilloscope showing there. And I've got 4 signals on it. I've got the clock I talked about. I've got the slow and fast pins hooked up, so you can see just the raw square waves coming off of the counter. And then you can see at the bottom that says pew pew, and that's the pew pew signal. That's what's coming out on the 2 button line. So now, if I unpause carefully, so what you'll notice is I'm in an interesting part of the game. And why am I here is because, why am I using Bloody Wolf? Just a second. So I'm using Bloody Wolf because this game has a lot of lag. And it sort of happens whenever there's too many people on the screen or whenever there's too many bullets on the screen. And what I've done here is gotten myself into a place to where there is a decent amount of lag. Well, not just lag. Right now there's no lag. But the minute I start firing, lag will happen because I'll put more sprites on the screen. So what you'll see is, actually you can see it right here every so often. There's the guy in the lower left corner. When he shoots at the same time that the guy over at the right that's shooting in a spread, that causes a little bit of lag. And if you look up here, you'll see these pulses. So those pulses are sent, at least in this game, once a frame. So it's frame. And you'll see sometimes those, these signals will get wider. And what that is a lag frame. Just like you see in an emulator that has a good lag counter. But as a result, since TurboGrafx misses the frame because it's taking too long doing stuff, it waits for the entire next frame before it's able to update. But also it pushes out TurboGrafx sending that convert pulse to the controller, which is also the same pulse that goes into the counter. So the counter, see these counter pulses, slow and fast, get longer because of that. Which means that the turbo fire will also basically be lag aware, which is pretty cool because if you sort of intuitively that's what you want. If the game starts lagging, you don't want to continue generating the same turbo frequency and having half the inputs potentially be that ignored. So right now, let's shoot. So right now I'm on the fastest, on the fast turbo setting. So if I start shooting, you'll notice that bottommost signal, now it's got data on it. Actually, I'm on slow. So I'm on fast. You can see pulses are matching the fast signal exactly, because that's exactly what it's doing electronically. I press down the button with the turbo slider on the fast option. When I press the button, it feeds the fast counter output out onto the fast input on the box, and that's when it gets sent to the TurboGrafx here also. So you're wondering, why is the width of all the pulses changing? That's because I'm creating a ton of intermittent lag. All the bullets go through, but you'll notice the actual the spacing of the bullets is consistent, except for when I hit the bullet max and the pause. But despite the timing, despite the speed of the bullets getting faster and slower because of hitting lag frames and not, the spacing of the bullets is always consistent. So this is lag aware turbo. So that's the fast if I carefully got myself down one. Now I'm on slow, and you'll notice that the bullets are more spaced. But you'll also notice that now that last signal is identical to the slow signal. So the fourth and the second ones are now the same. And then if I turn off turbo, press the button manually. And even better, now you get to see how debouncing and not debouncing. You get to see switch bouncing and all this stuff because it's a mechanical switch. But now it has nothing to do with those counters, but I still cause lag, so it's changing the other signals. So this is all with lag. Let's go to a place without lag. So here, let's reset. Here, I'm going to plug in. I have an extension here. Unplug this open TurboPad. Plug in a regular TurboPad I've got in my lab, just to navigate the game to a place that doesn't have any lag, no matter how much you shoot. And we'll look at how the signals look for that. So let's go through the menus. Get to the beginning. So right here, no enemies, nobody's shooting anything, it's just me. You notice the timing signals are nice and steady. At this point, if I start shooting, well, here. Timing signals are steady because there's nothing happening. I have to plug in the other one now. Plug the gutted one back in, so you can see all those tasty signals. There we go. So now, oh, it paused for me. There we go. So that's manual fire. It's slow. And you'll notice here the clock pulses are staying nice and consistent. If you look at, I dropped two cursors on here just to give you a point of reference. This cursor, these two dashed lines. And down here you can see the delta X is 16.6 milliseconds per 60 hertz. This is just to show you the time distance between these pulses is 1 frame. It's pretty slow, you see that's not causing any lag. Even how fast it is now. See there, get a nice compare of what's being sent out, what's being used as the button signal going into the game versus what's coming from. So now this happens says, so what is the turbo valve? Well, it's 2 frames on, 2 frames off. That is turbo and it's live order. So, let's do this in BizHawk then. So I already got it set up in a similar place. And first I'll show you what, at least for me, was the default setting. And that was 1 frame on, 1 frame off. Which is the fastest turbo you can have, because if you experience 0 frames on or off, then you don't actually do anything. Here we are in Bloody Wolf. So that's single fire. But then if I do auto fire, you'll notice the clustering on those bullets is way too tight. So this is beyond what the regular TurboPad can do. So go back into config auto fire. If I do 2 frames on, 2 frames off, and now use auto fire, you'll notice it looks just like it did on the actual turbo graphics capture, including dealing with lag. And here you can see the lag counter, so as I'm firing, you'll notice it sometimes ticks when I'm just standing still, when both the spread gunner and the regular gunner down below shoot. And then I start firing, oh man, you get all sorts of lag, and it's throttling back and forth. Now let's go into config and change it to what slow would be, so that would be 4 on, 4 off. See this? Yep. Same spread, same rhythm, and still lag aware. And if I reset, carefully reset. Nope. Reboot core. Start again. And we'll do it from that beginning scene that we see without any lag. So slow. Nice consistent turbo. Let's go back to the fast setting, which is 2 and 2. Now for kicks, let's see what would happen if I turn off take lag frames into account. So what this is saying is, doesn't matter based on, see there's 2, in BizHawk there's 2 frame counters. There's the top one, which is literally just every frame, and then whenever it's red, it's a lag frame, so it got missed. So if they take lag frames into account, if I turn off take lag frames into account, it's just going to do the auto fire pattern, regardless of whether it's a lag frame or not. And I didn't try this before streaming, so let's see what this looks when I go to a place that's got a ton of lag. Well, the same test point I had, so get over here, jump out there, get up on this. Let's see. So what you'll notice is, here I'm going to pause it mid shot, and see the bullets are not evenly spaced anymore, and that's because after those first 2 pellets come out, I guess after the first 3, we're starting to hit lag frames now, but then since it's not taking into account, it clusters these tighter. So it's important that that's checked. There you go. So if you just want the punchline, if you're using BizHawk specifically, and I'm looking for accuracy, in emulation, usually I go BizHawk first. You need to set up the auto fire to either be 2 on, 2 off, like the timing diagram shows here. You'll see it's too low, too high, but low in this logic. This is active low logic, so it's 2 on, 2 off, 2 on, 2 off for fast, or 4 on, 4 off for slow. And check the box for make auto fire lag aware, and you will have auto fire that, to my knowledge, is the same as the TurboPad auto fire. So that's it. I'm gonna stop for now. I might come back on later to actually play a game for real, but I wanted to create this because it had been bugging me, because I didn't always have a TurboGrafx. This is a new acquisition for me, and I said if I got one, I would crack open the controller and hook it up to my scope and see what's going on. So, thanks for watching.